Have you ever received a scholarship? Have you ever been to a key class? Have you ever ranked first in the school? How many certificates have you received? How many competitions have you participated in? Have you impressed the person you like? You're not talking anymore. But you're still looking at your phone. Returning to 2007, this time Lu Shixian began to make plans, strive, change styles, and move forward. Lu Shixian. Sorry. This time, I must win. Chapter 1. No one can try, what's going on in class. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. You try. Can't you try? You try. Give me try too. No one can try, what's going on in class. On the classroom podium, roars of anger emanated from a female teacher's mouth. I told you to communicate in English during class, but you told me that you don't know how to stand up. Do you mean that? Alright, go to self-study, I won't say anything. With the sudden outburst of the female teacher, the entire classroom became quiet and the needles could be heard falling. Suddenly, the female teacher seemed to see something that made her even angrier. She rushed forward to a student's desk and slapped it hard twice with an English book. Lu Shixian. Stand up. Answer my question. What's the title of the article? In the classroom, a boy sitting in the crowd seemed to wake up from a dream, looking up in confusion from the back of his classmates at the front desk. I'll go, what's going on with Lu Shixian today? Surprisingly, I started sleeping from the first class. During the math class, Teacher Zhou didn't hold him accountable, but English is the class of the extinction teacher. Yeah, Abyss Extinction doesn't care whether he's the first in his grade or not. Has Lu Shixian already become a bookworm? Today is very abnormal, even the extermination Abyss dares to perfunctory. The students around couldn't help but whisper in surprise. But Lu Shixian seemed to have not fully regained consciousness when he suddenly asked the female teacher. Boss, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand? No, right. Will Lu Shixian not understand? As soon as this statement was made, all the classmates around were shocked. The female teacher's whole face sank and she became furious again, but this time her target became Lu Shixian alone. Lu Shixian. You should say, I don't know, sorry teacher, and then I'll let you sit down, otherwise you'll stand up. Forever. I don't care how many grades you get first, I must listen carefully in class. Do you understand? Stand up for the whole class, then write an English review and send it to my office after class. The bell for the end of class rang quickly, and Lu Shixian's gaze gradually became clear and confused. What is the situation? Am I not the strongest worker in a non-university campus? It is likely that a simulation experiment on tomato yield and cost-benefit analysis of planting in the southern region based on the DSSAT substore model is being conducted in the laboratory. And now he looked around, already in a simple classroom and a group of crazy little kids. Looking up, there is a red banner hanging on the snow-white wall of the classroom. A decisive sprint for the high school entrance examination in 100 days. I'll go. What situation is this? Although I don't really believe it, the facts in front of me cannot be false. Is it difficult for me to be reborn? Thinking of the past, Lu Shixian couldn't help but shed tears in the corners of his eyes. In his past life, as the most outstanding top student in Jinling Agricultural High School, he never took an exam in the past 3 years and was not ranked first in his grade. In theory, this score is eligible for being recommended to Jinling No. 1 Middle School, but his 3 years of no mistakes have blinded him. In 2007, the huge gap between urban education and rural education resources was like a trench. Lu Shixian still vaguely remembers the proud him, stubbornly refusing the homeroom teacher's suggestion. I proudly applied to Jinling Affiliated High School, which is almost a high school where I can easily pass the entrance exam and pass the exam. However, the final result was not satisfactory. Is it difficult that there is a divine will in the dark, which has brought me to the fork in my life choices in my past life, muttered Lu Shixian to himself. Just as he was thinking about it, his long sleeve was gently pulled and a snow-white handkerchief was handed over. At the same time, a lively female voice came in my ear. Did you learn too much? There's a problem here, how can you sleep in class and talk nonsense? I heard that students who study well are more likely to become bookworms. Lu Shixian turned his head and met a slightly dark but still beautiful face. Chunya, his desk mate in the third year of junior high school. With the memories of Lu Shixian coming 10 years later. The green and somewhat introverted girl in front of me slowly overlapped with the gentle and elegant female counselor from Jinling University later on. Lu Shixian shook his head with a sigh, took the handkerchief from Chunya's hand, and wiped away the tears from his face. The previously tense body due to excitement or tension also relaxed accordingly. Smelling the faint fragrance on the handkerchief, I looked into Chunya's eyes with a faint look of admiration and concern. Lu Shixian said to her seriously, "You're right, I'm just a bookworm." After speaking, he returned the handkerchief in his hand to her. "Thank you, my desk mate." Upon hearing these words, the girl's face was filled with surprise, and she then took the handkerchief in confusion. He actually thanked me. The girl's heart was filled with question marks. Seeing her reaction, Lu Shixian's mood also improved a lot, and he couldn't help but marvel at it. Is this youth? It's really beautiful, but unfortunately I didn't cherish it at that time. Then he habitually used his hands as pillows, leaning against the wall, and his lazy breath immediately became apparent. Suddenly, there were even more surprised gazes coming from around. In their eyes, the proud son of heaven in school seems to have never behaved like this before, always burying himself in studying and practicing, like an Iron Man. Have you ever slept in class? How could such frivolous behavior have been made before? But this surprise quickly dissipated with the ringing of the class bell, and one by one, their hands were quickly placed together, sitting upright. In 2007, education was not affected by foreign cultures. As children of migrant workers and students in key classes, almost all students behaved like little sheep. Only Lu Shixian, who was accustomed to open education in his previous life's university, had not yet entered the role. With one hand supporting his head, he quietly looked at the schedule in the upper right corner of the blackboard. Counting English, physical and physical history, English and English language. Sure enough, it's still the same as what I remember. The prime time in the morning is all for main classes, with one more class taking turns every day. In the afternoon, there is a main class that combines sports, physics, history, and biology. As for the evening self-study time, it depends on which teacher has more time. Looking at the clock hanging high on the wall, the time pointed to 11:15 a.m., which happened to be the last class in the morning. It's Teacher Wang. It's really a long time since I saw you. A gentle, attentive, and capable image of a short-haired woman came to mind, and Lu Shixian sighed lightly in his heart. Mr. Wang also serves as the Chinese teacher and homeroom teacher for Class 1 of Grade 3, and is also the best and most influential teacher in his life. Even mentors who served as bosses in their past lives cannot match. In high school, he didn't have the face to go back and visit. When he returned to Jinling Agricultural High School when he was admitted to graduate school, he heard the news that she had been transferred to teach in primary schools in other counties and cities. Later, after experiencing the vicissitudes of society, he realized that it was because he carried the great expectations of the school, but in the end, he could only report to the third middle school of the poor student concentration camp. How can this gentle woman withstand the accountability of the school, the arrangement of colleagues, and her own guilt? Chapter 2. Re-understanding Wang Chunya. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Duh. The crisp sound of high heels came from the corridor, and Lu Shixian's eyes were fixed on the door for a moment. Finally, a young woman with neatly combed short hair and dressed in a black teacher's suit walked solemnly to the center of the podium, holding her textbook and taking light steps with a faint smile. From the perspective of Lu Shixian's past life being poisoned by various plastic surgery and makeup techniques, which without any reason has raised her aesthetic standards, she is not particularly beautiful, and even somewhat ordinary in the crowd. But in the eyes of Lu Shixian now, there seemed to be a light in her smile, attracting all his gaze. Classmates, we still have 100 days to face the most severe test of our junior high school career. Through this exam, we will determine which high school we will go to and which university we will continue to attend. And it will ultimately determine everyone's life, so please cherish these last 100 days and review the content you have learned. After research by the third-year teaching and research group, it has been decided to take the first survey exam in the following week, and based on the exam results, invite your parents to participate in the 100-day oath-taking ceremony with you. Her words continued, but Lu Shixian's thoughts had already flown into the distance, not knowing where. He stared blankly at her familiar yet unfamiliar face, feeling as if he had knocked over a bottle of 5 flavors. Everything related to her from his previous life was projected in his mind like a fleeting glance. Although she had not seen it with her own eyes, Lu Shixian seemed to be able to imagine the disappointed and heartbroken eyes of her past life in her smiling eyes. I won't let you down this time, Lu Shixian clenched his fists and secretly swore in his heart. Until the bell for the end of class rang, disrupting his chaotic thoughts. A serious but still gentle voice suddenly sounded in my ear. Lu Shixian, come to my office after lunch. Lu Shixian suddenly lifted his head, but at some point, Wang Chunya had already walked to his side. Is it true that I am still the same as before, even in a daze throughout the whole class, reluctant to scold me in front of my classmates? Or are you worried that I'll be late at the cafeteria and have to queue for a long time? Lu Shixian looked at her clear and worried eyes, his heart becoming softer. He pushed back the chair and stood up calmly. No need, let's do it now. As the strongest worker in the school in his past life, he naturally developed some aura in the research group, except for the boss who was below 1 person, above 10,000 people. Upon hearing Lu Shixian's resolute and unquestionable tone, Wang Chunya raised her eyebrows and frowned lightly, completely unaware that the top student in her eyes would speak to her like this. And in the first and second year of junior high school, I never put forward opinions that contradict my own ideas, which is very obedient. Why is it that there's a bit of a grade director's intention now? Why is this aura even stronger than mine? Is he a teacher or am I a teacher? Wang Chunya naturally had a black question mark on her face in her heart, but gentle she still agreed, thinking that if it delayed his meal time, she would take him to the teacher's cafeteria to start a small stove. Of course, this may be related to the different aura and treatment of top students, not to their personality. If it were anyone else, it's uncertain whether Wang Chunya would behave like this. She might have driven him out for dinner long ago. Then, Lu Shixian followed her step by step to the office in the 3rd grade of junior high school. The office is located less than 100 meters away from Class 1 of Grade 3, and has been transformed from an idle classroom. It is more like a public office space, specifically designed to serve graduation classes, especially key classes. With the status of Jinling Agricultural High School and the economic level at that time, it was not eligible for a single teacher to have a separate office, and all teachers in the entire grade worked together inside. Ms. Wang doesn't like to smell the smell of a few old cigarette butts. I remember her desk should be in the middle by the window, with the best ventilation. And she really likes flowers and plants, so the table with an orchid plant should be the one. Lu Shixian's eyes had already focused on her desk before entering the office. At this point, some teachers who have not attended classes or have already finished classes have begun to step out and prepare for meals. In such an office, every day we look up and down, so naturally every teacher is very familiar with each other. At that time, the relationship between teachers at Jinling Agricultural Middle School was also very harmonious, without the intrigues and struggles he had during his time at Jinling Third Middle School. A female teacher, whose temples were already slightly white and about 40 years old, looked at Wang Chunya and Lu Shixian and greeted them, "Teacher Wang, why don't you go eat yet? Usually, we call out some underachievers to come in and talk. Isn't this your favorite student?" Lu Shixian seems to have some impression. The speaker should be the homeroom teacher of Class 2 of the Key Class, Teacher Tong, and the leader of the Chinese Teaching and Research Group. The rest of the information is completely forgotten. "Yeah, Xiao Wang, Lu Shixian is the best seedling in our school. Although he's not in good shape today, I won't let him cry if you scold him." A black-faced male voice with a beer belly and a slightly receding hairline came from beside him. Upon hearing about this physique, Lu Shixian couldn't help but recall this person. Zhou Wen, the head of the Academic Affairs Group and Mathematics Research Group for the third year of Jinling Agricultural Middle School, served as a mathematics teacher for 2 top classes. Upon hearing his words, Lu Shixian pouted and kept muttering in his heart. Wang Chunya always speaks softly and never loses her temper when giving lectures. The work of reprimanding and cursing has never been done by you, an old rascal with a black face and an exterminated nun. In fact, as long as there is a student in the classroom who goes back crying, even the petite little girl Liang is the same, it is definitely a good thing done by their unparalleled double pride. Upon hearing their teasing, Wang Chunya pursed her lips and said, "How could that be? Isn't this the 100-day oath? Just call him over to talk to me. Then pay attention to the time, don't wait too long. If you don't have time later, call him to the 2nd floor to eat." Speaking, Zhou Wen left with the teacher in the office. Wang Chunya responded and came to her seat to sit down. When she turned around, she found that Lu Shixian had already found a chair and sat down before her, looking around. And it doesn't seem like they're being called out to talk to each other, it's more like they're coming for sightseeing and tourism. Is it really because of the restlessness during adolescence? How could this child change so much? For a moment, she felt both angry and amused in her heart. However, she didn't forget the main matter and asked. "Lu Shixian, what's going on with you today? You've been sleeping for almost all 4 classes in the morning. Isn't it because you're feeling unwell?" As expected by Wang Chunya, at this moment, Lu Shixian would, as usual, bow his head and remain silent, reflecting on his actions. But something unexpected happened to her. Chapter 3. Race Against Time. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If he had been dull in middle school, he would have been like this, but now that his young body is filled with a 25-year-old soul, he is no longer the person he used to be. In fact, upon hearing her question, Lu Shixian had already guessed that she would ask this, and had already prepared a draft. Social necessary labor time refers to the labor time required to create a certain value of use under the existing normal production conditions and the average level of labor proficiency and intensity in society. I believe that with my proficiency in the knowledge points of junior high school, there is no need to spend so much labor time. As she spoke, she saw Wang Chunya's red lips slightly open, and her gaze seemed somewhat incredulous. "Where did you see all of this?" Lu Shixian shrugged and casually handed the pot to the political teacher who only taught until the 2nd year of junior high school. "In my 2nd year of junior high school, I mentioned Introduction to Ma Yuan in my political class, and I felt quite interested in it. So, I took the opportunity to learn more about it." Although Wang Chunya was skeptical of his words, she was somewhat skeptical of his recent statement about his mastery of knowledge. If it were something she had already learned in 1st and 2nd grade, she could still understand it, but in her 4th class, she was talking about an extracurricular ancient poem and prose. Some of the knowledge points in it were already beyond the outline, and many grammar points were only learned in the 1st year of high school. After these 2 years of teaching, she actually has some understanding of Lu Shixian's learning level. Being able to achieve the first place in grade for 3 years is due to Lu Shixian's intelligence, which are unparalleled among his peers in school. However, he cannot be called a genius, and it is only through continuous hard work that he has achieved this. As long as nothing unexpected happens, there should be no problem for him to attend Jinling No. 1 High School, a key high school in Jinling, based on his grades. But now this top student is actually starting to feel proud, which is not a good phenomenon. Thinking of this, Wang Chunya frowned and looked at his confident expression, feeling embarrassed to directly confront him. Having worked as a homeroom teacher for several years, she learned that for adolescents, persuasion and encouragement should be the main focus, so that they can recognize their mistakes on their own and not arouse their rebellious mentality. Thinking in her heart how to make Lu Shixian more down to earth, she suddenly remembered that she was going to hold her first survey exam soon, and her eyebrows gradually relaxed. Well, let's do it this way. If you still get first place in this final exam, I'll allow you to freely move around in Chinese class without affecting other students' learning. Upon hearing this, Lu Shixian's eyes lit up instantly. That's settled. I think Mr. Wang's matter can be popularized, but not limited to Chinese language. Lu Shixian immediately drew conclusions. Upon hearing this, Wang Chunya frowned again, feeling increasingly speechless by Lu Shixian's boundless imagination. Why haven't you seen this guy jump like this in the past 2 years? But the original intention of this matter has not changed. As long as he fails, there is no difference between 1 course and 6 courses. As for the possibility of his success, she did not worry about it. The only thing to consider is whether other teachers will agree, and the only thing she can decide is her Chinese class. Thinking of this, Wang Chunya touched her brows and said, I'll talk to your teachers about other subjects, but I don't know if you can agree to them. Just mention it. If you don't agree, I'll discuss it with them again. After speaking, Lu Shixian didn't wait for her to speak, so he quickly found an excuse to say goodbye to her. By the time Wang Chunya reacted, Lu Shixian had already disappeared without a trace. Returning to the classroom, Lu Shixian was very happy and even began to hum a tune. He is worried about how to persuade all the teachers to let him preview high school content in advance, despite having mastered many cognitive levels far beyond his current age as a graduate student in his past life. But after so many years of not learning basic education knowledge, it would be deceiving to say that there is no possibility of overturning. If it really overturns, then I am truly ashamed of the vast number of rebirths. For him, there is a lot of content in junior high school that can be answered correctly based solely on common sense, but the content in high school is different. He studied agriculture in his undergraduate studies and crop genetics and breeding in his graduate studies. Apart from related knowledge points, he has long forgotten about other knowledge in high school. The most important thing is that he doesn't have a system. Yes, as reborn beings, it has been half a day since they were reborn, and now there is no response at all. This means he doesn't deserve to have a rebirth benefit. Of course, this does not mean that he does not have any advantages, if his current development direction does not focus on academia or business. With the memory and experience of the next 15 years, and relying on information gaps and policy trends, he will also do better than most people. However, he had an obsession in his heart that forced him to pursue academic development. Even though he arrived at the 3rd middle school where poor students gathered, he worked hard and was admitted to Jinling Agricultural University. Even if Jinling Agricultural University is a double non-university, he has unwaveringly embarked on the academic path and made some achievements on this path. If he takes the path of academia and suffers from the hardships of his past life, he deeply understands the importance of platforms. Unless you can change the industry, to some extent, platform size is even more important than your abilities. The level of project application and the amount of project funding you can obtain are closely related to the size of the platform. Even the professional papers you write, whether in China or abroad, if you are from a prestigious university, the editor will look up to you and even give you more opportunities, with minor modifications. However, if you are a key research topic in a non-famous place, then I'm sorry for the inconvenience. If you are from a prestigious university, you may need to make a major revision or overturn it and start over. He has already eaten too much of this closed door. Now he has a chance to make a new choice, and what he has put in is nothing more than achievements. And to be honest, with his current leading learning methods and forward-looking vision, what he needs to stand out from others is nothing more than time. What he lacks is precisely time. He really doesn't have time to waste on learning middle school knowledge. As a reborn individual, he naturally knows where Wang Chunya's confidence lies in betting with him. This is also his confidence in predicting that other teachers will also agree to this agreement. Because he vividly remembers that the first comprehensive examination of Jinling Agricultural High School was held together with 5 junior high schools in Jinling City. It was not until later, as the middle school entrance examination approached, that the school decided to conduct rankings alone in order not to undermine the confidence of the students. And he still remembers the exam results clearly and never forgets them. Due to his deep impression, he only recalled a little and remembered all the results of this exam. What are the misunderstandings in Chapter 4? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chinese score 105, Mathematics score 118, English score 111, Physics score 95, Biology score 100, History score 80. Language, Mathematics, English, with a maximum score of 120 points, Physics, Biology, and History with a maximum score of 100 points. Speaking of which, it must be mentioned that in 2007, the middle school entrance examination in Jinling City implemented a grading system. 110 to 120 score 9 points. 105 to 109 score 8 points. A score of 100 to 104 is 7 points. Score 6 points from 95 to 99. There is no need to say the rest, because Lu Shixian has never fallen into that range. Because the only score included in the ranking in the middle school entrance examination is the total of 27 points in language, math, and English, plus 3 points in the physical education test, for a total of 30 points. The scores in physics, biology, and history determine the ranking that your level score is on par with others. This is also why language, mathematics, and English always occupy the prime time on the schedule of middle schools in Jinling City. Obviously, this ranking model is very unfair, especially if you have worked hard to get a full score of 120 points, but it is exactly the same as the 110 points you get from others. So, this ranking mechanism was eliminated a year later, and it also severely pitted Lu Shixian in his previous life. Of course, there is no need to mention the past and past. It can only be said that he is not a true academic genius and cannot ignore any tests and challenges. Because this score is even the result of his exceptional performance, almost 10% higher than the average level, and the distribution of scores is also within a reasonable range of grade scores. Converted to a grade score, he scored 26 points. The comprehensive examination did not count towards the physical education score, so he is only 1 point away from the full score. But at that time, there were dozens of Jinling who achieved a perfect score of 27 points, not to mention the outstanding ones among the 26 points. So his final score was 68th in the city. That's right, as the top student in the school for 3 consecutive years, he didn't even make it to the top 50 in the joint examination. This score may be enough for others, but he, who is arrogant, cannot accept it. He remembered that he had been sinking for a period of time for this matter at that time, and it was only after Wang Chunya's forgiveness that he slowly emerged. At that time, with the level of Lu Shixian, it was completely impossible to achieve first place in this comprehensive joint examination. This is also the reason why Wang Chunya is so confident in gambling contracts. Thinking of this, Lu Shixian smiled lightly and shook his head. Unfortunately, I am no longer the person I used to be. Lu Shixian lowered his head and pondered, slowly returning to the classroom. But before he could enter, a person at the door blocked his way, and the slender figure appeared far under the sunlight. If you don't see someone, hear their voice first. Humph, Lu Shixian, don't be complacent. You haven't even started listening attentively in class. Then I will definitely surpass you in this final exam. He lifted his head and saw a beautiful face on the blue and white school uniform. Under the blue loose pants, his slender legs were highlighted, and his soft and shiny black hair was only a few centimeters away from being able to wrap over his shoulders due to school regulations. Do you have any misunderstandings about me, classmate? Lu Shixian was a bit puzzled at first, only to realize when he looked at the person's face. A familiar name comes to mind. Su Yumeng. In this era, girls have not yet learned how to apply makeup, and medical beauty is a product that does not exist on campus. Even in their past lives, the so-called various school flowers are not as natural as her. It seems that I have really missed out on many scenic spots along the way. If there is a list of the most hated villains in Su Yumeng, then Lu Shixian must be at the top of the list. Because from the first to the third year of junior high school, she can only get the second place, which is commonly known as the second year of 10,000 years. People will always remember the first place, and no one cares who the second place is. This law loses its validity here. According to the popular saying in her past life, she was the class flower of class 1 in grade 3 and also the school flower of Jinling Agricultural High School. But it doesn't include Lu Shixian, his only eyes are scores. Su Yumeng did not receive any preferential treatment from him, and even felt estranged because she had affected her own status. He is dull and indifferent, which is his best weapon against Su Yumeng. Perhaps at that time, he truly achieved the goal of having no women in his heart and testing the natural spirit. It's hard to believe that a public rural junior high school that mainly recruits children of migrant workers can have such girls. At this moment, the girl's bright-eyed and white-toothed face showed some confusion. What's the misunderstanding? What are you saying, Lu Shixian? He smiled after listening, but didn't explain anything. I said, with so many students across the country, it's really not easy for us to become classmates. So there may be a misunderstanding between us. If you want this first, I can give it to you anytime next time, but this time it's an exception. After speaking, he gracefully withdrew and left. Su Yumeng. It seems that Lu Shixian has never spoken to her in such a tone before, has he? It seems like I never said I wanted her, right? Her originally calm heart rippled for the first time, and her delicate white hands instinctively clenched tightly. She looked up in surprise at the once so indifferent figure and whispered, "What? What a strange person. I don't need your permission." Su Yumeng's incident was just an interlude for him. Returning to his seat, he soon received the sound of a nap. But at this moment, almost all the students remained unchanged, still holding pens and struggling with the 5-year high school entrance exam 3-year simulation or the 4-round review of high school entrance exam mathematics in their hands. But next, Lu Shixian's actions made everyone feel like they had seen a ghost. I saw him slowly put all the books on the table into the drawer, then lay down, and then there was no movement. Next to her, Chinese pen in her right hand was almost unstable, and she looked at her desk mate as if she was an alien. Su Yumeng, who was in the second row with him but far away, cast a puzzled look at him. The whole class looked at each other in silence, as if even their breath had stopped. What's going on? Lu Shi actually took a nap today. I see that he hasn't been able to concentrate since his English class in the morning. Could it be that he stayed up late last night to study for too long and worked too hard? Soon, even the teacher who occasionally patrolled by the window cast a strange gaze at him. But ultimately, no one bothered him, and he didn't care about these strange looks. This is the privilege of a top student. No wonder his classmates were surprised, because working overtime during nap time was a habit he developed during his 3 years in junior high school, which he maintained for 3 years. For them, people who are better than you work harder than you, which is enough to make them ignore Lu Shixian's eccentric personality and admire him from the bottom of their hearts. In his youth, he was full of energy and brought about the tradition of not taking a nap in the whole class. At first, the teachers made a big fuss about it, but later found that their grades had improved slightly through testing, so they half pushed and half turned a blind eye. And now, the initiator has fallen asleep. Chapter 5. Lu Shixian. Reconnecting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The wind will break the clouds and rain will clear up in the early days, reflecting on the warm and bright lake. When he woke up, it was already the beginning of the sudden rain, and the spring sunshine was lingering. The culprit that woke him up was the fluffy brush gently sliding on his cheeks. It's sunny, Teacher Lin has notified us to undergo physical training, Chunya explained nervously as she watched him wake up. Lu Shixian quickly scanned everything around him and then stretched out a long lazy waist. Fortunately, this is not a dream. The nervousness on Chunya's face and the size of her classmates around her. All these scenes were presented before his eyes in reality. Lu Shixian unconsciously grinned and said softly, "Thank you, classmate." As expected, shyness spread rapidly, as if it had already dyed the kawaii fuzz on Chunya's face. In the end, there was only her swiftly running back in the classroom. Lu Shixian raised his palm, looked at the young lines on it, and then suddenly clenched it. Physical examination. I'm sorry. I won't let you become a roadblock on my way forward this time. The education in 2007 was not as rigid as in previous lives. For example, the small lake next to the school playground is their playground. Facing the warm but not dazzling sunshine, blowing the gentle spring breeze over the lake. Standing in the crowd, the rough, cannon-like voice of the physical education teacher could be heard in my ears. However, Lu Shixian did not find it harsh at all, but rather found it particularly pleasing to the ear. You are all classmates from Class 1. Compared to the other classes I teach, your academic performance is very excellent, but it is also the reason why you need to improve your physical fitness. The physical fitness test accounts for a full 3 points in the middle school entrance examination. Among tens of thousands of middle school students in the province, the difference of 1 point is often hundreds. Needless to say, everyone knows the importance of these 3 points. I hope that in these last 100 or so days, everyone can train seriously and ensure to get the 3 points that can be easily obtained. Lu Shixian looked around with firm eyes and couldn't help but marvel in his heart that Lin Depao was really talented not to become a political teacher. Unfortunately, at that time, I was a bit self-righteous. Without time to continue sighing, Lin Depao had already whistled and shouted the command. All right, everyone has it. 10 laps around the track, aerobic training starts now. One team stands out and starts training. The second team is out of line. The departing team was like a neatly arranged pearl necklace, in an orderly manner. But then, for the third team, Lu Depao's instructions changed. 3 teams free training after 10 sets of push-ups. In the crowd, Lu Shixian smiled bitterly and shook his head. All 3 teams are students who have taken leave due to special circumstances. Of course, every time the people from the 3 teams do not replicate. After all, girls occasionally have relatives visiting every month, but he doesn't. He was assigned to the 3rd team purely because he had some fear of high-intensity physical training. He is different from other students who are afraid of long-distance running in that he is the first in his grade. So after fainting during a training session, Lin Depao reluctantly agreed, thanks to the fact that the teaching director personally came to plead for him. But later on, the eyes towards him were not very friendly. It can be said that almost every teacher in Jinling Agricultural High School regards him as a treasure, but only Lin Dazhao has a very bad impression of him. Lu Shixian's previously eccentric personality naturally became increasingly incompatible with Lin Depao. When Lu Shixian finally approached the middle school entrance examination, he hardly participated in the physical testing simulation, and the final result can be imagined. Young and carefree, unaware of sorrow, carefree and drunk, dreaming of a clear autumn. Thinking of this, Lu Shixian could only sigh inwardly. Then, he took a gentle step forward and loudly said, "Report. Teacher Lin, I want to do long-distance running training." As soon as these words were spoken, the eyes of several female relatives who were walking nearby converged on Lu Shixian's face. And the whistle on Lin DePeo's mouth fell directly down. He slowly took off his sunglasses from his face, looked at Lu Shixian for a few seconds, and then put them on again, just as if he was on a whim. Then he didn't continue to pay attention, picked up his whistle, and blew it. "Lu Shixian, keep up, the 5-lap running training begins." Upon hearing the instructions, Lu Shixian casually did a few warm-up exercises he used to do in his previous life, took a deep breath, and ran out at a steady pace. As soon as he stood on the runway, Lu Shixian could feel the weakness of this body. In his past life, he had a crazy period of hard training to successfully apply for graduate school, winning the long-distance running championship at the school sports meet. After joining the track and field team, he received a period of professional training and even had outstanding moments at the Universiade. But now, before even a lap, he can feel the constant secretion of lactic acid in his body, slowing down his pace step by step. Although he has tried his best to maintain the rhythm that best suits his body at this moment, swinging with standardized technical movements and tilting at the most energy-efficient landing angle, it can be said that one has mastered the most correct direction of progress. However, if the core power engine is not awesome, it is difficult for a skillful woman to make bricks without straw. Slowly, he couldn't maintain the initial running rhythm and began to gasp for breath, with beads of sweat dripping down his face. To be honest, he noticed a detail. The training instructions given to him by Lin DePeo do not include the word aerobic, which means he can stop halfway to rest. But he, who has received professional training in track and field long-distance running, knows that track and field sports are constantly breaking through oneself. Similar to the ancient saying of, 1 shot at a time, then decline, and 3 exhaustion. He can slow down, but he must not stop before completing the task. Lack of physical constitution, insufficient willpower, insufficient talent, and insufficient skills. Only oneself can always overcome oneself. In response to his weak physique at this time, Lu Shixian quickly set a reasonable training plan for himself in his mind. At the same time, Lin DePeo on the playground has been using his spare time to pay attention to the enviable movements during landing. Although he couldn't bear to see Lu Shixian, his conscience as a teacher of the people and the pressure brought by Lu Shixian's academic dominance halo. If Lu Shixian had any accidents with him, he had no doubt that black-faced one would come to his house with a kitchen knife to greet him. As he watched, Lu Shixian did as he had expected, moving slower and slower before finally starting to walk on foot. He laughed and shook his head, thinking this kid would turn around. But as time passed, Lu Shixian ran and walked, but he just didn't stop. As a physical education teacher, his professionalism allowed him to see some tricks through. 1, 2, 3, 4. 10. Why does this kid always take 10 steps and start running again? After the first walk, he ran about 100 meters, and the second walk, he ran about half a lap, which is about 200 meters. How could this kid keep improving? At this moment, Lin DePeo is simply a question mark on his face. Does this kid still know the method of waiting for time to rest and train? Chapter 6. Reconciliation with Self. You are listening at novelfull.audio. To be honest, if Lu Shixian heard what Lin DePeo said, he would definitely praise him for having a few brushes. If possible, he would prefer to implement a more effective method of reducing time for rest training. But now, he doesn't have time to care about these anymore. If there is an adjective to describe his feeling at this moment, it will definitely be excruciating pain. He deeply realized that his body had reached its limit at this moment. Practice again, but you can't let yourself be useless. Who knows if there will be a chance to practice the trumpet again. Exercise is a long-term process and there is no possibility of achieving it overnight. After choosing to walk the remaining lap, Lu Shixian finally completed the task of 5 laps. By the time he returned to the team, a small group of classmates had already completed the task of 10 laps. He immediately caught the attention of many classmates upon his return. Eyes are the window to the soul, and with the help of past life experiences, he quickly glanced over the emotions of these children. At this time, the relationship between classmates is still very simple, without so many twists and turns. Most of them were filled with surprise, and of course, there was also Chenyi's uncontrollable joyful gaze and Su Yomeng's occasionally provocative gaze. Lin Debao's time was still very accurate, and when most people finished 10 laps, the bell for the end of class rang on time. At this moment, the bell sounds like fairy music to many people. It can be said that for middle school students in Jinling at that time, physical education classes included in the total grades were more like devil's courses than language, mathematics, and English. After the last gathering, Lin Debao announced the end of class, but left Lu Shixian alone. For a while, many people sent a look of good luck to Lu Shixian. After all, everyone knew that Lin and Lu Shixian didn't get along well, and their unpleasant experiences left them with vivid memories. Although they want to stay and watch the show, they are more willing to go back to the classroom and blow on the electric fan. So, soon there was only Lu Shixian and Lin Debao left on the playground of Nuoda. Lu Shixian remained silent, and being reborn was not meant to make him feel wronged. Lin Dacao looked at him, but for a moment, he couldn't answer the question he had just wanted to ask. So all he could do was tighten his face and stay serious. The result is nothing more than an increasingly tense atmosphere. With just a glance, Lu Shixian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Lin Debao's kindness to students is good, but good face is also really good face. Recalling his past life and returning to his hometown, I heard Lin Debao lament and regret to himself. If he changed his teaching methods, perhaps Lu Shixian's life trajectory would become better. Thinking of this, his already incredibly hard heart quietly softened. Number 34, sigh number 34, he let out a long sigh and had already made a decision in his heart. Lu Shixian lowered his head and bowed deeply to Lin Debao. Teacher Lin, forgive my stubbornness. I promise to train seriously in the future and never fall behind. Lin Debao blinked his eyes a few times, then took off his sunglasses from his face and touched his not too thick hair, giving Lu Shixian a deep glance. At this moment, Lin Debao, who spoke kindly, was once again unable to say a word. However, he took a step forward and lightly patted Lu Shixian's shoulder before leaving directly. After he left, Lu Shixian looked back at the warm spring sun after the rain and smiled softly. Oh, the injustice of going to TMD. All reconciliation of relationships is nothing more than making a reconciliation with one's past self. To be tolerant of everything about oneself, to be tolerant of the shortcomings of others, to be tolerant of their mistakes, life is inherently a process of constantly reconciling with the world. Blindly growing thorns will only harm others and oneself. As a boarding-style junior high school, Lu Shixian rested all night in the dormitory. When he went back to take a shower, he naturally looked hard at himself in the mirror. Looking at his 15-year-old self in front of the mirror, he touched the still thick hair and smooth skin on his head, and nodded with satisfaction. Removing the previous gloom and strangeness, his sword eyebrows and starry eyes now appear fresh and handsome. Even if it's not handsome and graceful, it can still be said to be a jade tree facing the wind. Why didn't I realize in my past life that when I was young, I was still considered a handsome guy? Why did I become disabled later on? He finally lowered his head with a guilty expression and patted himself. Still okay, third in the universe. Lu Shixian has now let go of his last worries. On Wednesday, at 6 o'clock in the morning, before breakfast time, he got up from bed an hour and a half earlier. Feeling the renewed vitality of his body, Lu Shixian once again praised his youth in his heart. After doing a few warm-up exercises, he left a solid and powerful footprint on the playground in the northeast corner of the school, which was not very fast. As for today's class, Lu Shixian had to be a good student for the whole day, bought himself an insurance, and reviewed all the courses from grade 1 to grade 3 again. As for the class, he did not listen, but the first thing he needs to do is to take it, as it is related to his future plans. I can only say that I'm sorry for Su Yumeng. Since ancient times, deep affection has not been able to be retained. What should I say next? On Thursday, I persisted in my exercise routine for the next day, and finally received good news from Wang Chunya. The teachers of several subjects agreed to this bet. It is said that at the beginning, when Black-Faced One heard that Lu Shixian had only 100 days left to move freely, he almost became an African. But when I heard that the condition was to get first place in the final exam, it was okay. I kept praising Wang Chunya for her deep tricks and wit. On Friday, with the arrangement of the exam venue and the distribution of admission tickets, we welcomed the last weekend before the joint exam for all junior high schools in Jinling City. Friday should be the most exciting day for many junior high school students. After all, unlike Lu Shixian, most students only stay on weekdays and can reunite with their families on Saturdays and Sundays. Finally, I made it to the 4th class in the afternoon. There was no evening self-study on this day, and by 5:30 p.m., it was often the busiest day in the whole school. Many parents come out of their children's dormitories carrying big and small bags, with simple happy smiles on their faces. In the classroom, many parents have learned that a large-scale survey exam will be held this time, and they attach great importance to it. They are not in a hurry to go back and are busy talking to several teachers with their children to understand the specific situation of their children in school. The situation in Class 1 of Grade 3 is even worse, to the extent that the most leisurely ones are actually Lu Shixian and Su Yumeng. The classroom that has already been arranged as an examination room is completely empty. Without the obstruction of others, the distance between the two in the second row appears particularly close in such a large space. Dreamers, why don't you go home? Lu Shixian pushed aside the review materials on the table and stretched lazily. Su Yomeng's smooth forehead suddenly turned black. She didn't know what medicine Lu Shixian had taken wrong, and why she had been feeling a bit abnormal lately. Chapter 7. The Joker turns out to be myself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. My name is Su Yumeng, not someone who enjoys dreaming. Do you know? Lu Shixian waved his hand and said, joyful dreams are not like dreaming, what is it? Is it difficult to be happy to be a father? Number 34. Su Yumeng naturally didn't know what allusion the following words came from, but she could clearly understand that what she said was definitely not good. Watching Su Yomeng's textbook hanging in mid-air, he was about to have his first intimate contact with his handsome face. Lu Shixian quickly begged for mercy one after another. The injury was minor, but if it was disfigurement, the situation would escalate. Su Bu, from the past, came with a carefree gaze, dreaming of entering Wushan. I'm satisfied now, right? He said at an incredibly fast pace, reciting a line of poetry that seemed unrelated. If others hear it, they will only feel inexplicable, it is nothing more than a name containing Su Yumeng. But as she listened, Su Yomeng's eyes quickly filled with tears. The textbook in hand also trembled and fell down. How did you know? Su Yumeng suppressed the strong emotions that were about to erupt in her heart and questioned Lu Shixian. Lu Shixian looked at the girl who suddenly emitted a strong sense of sadness and was also confused for a moment. Just now, she looked like a tiger, why is she starting to cry now? To be honest, this sentence was left by Su Yumeng on his graduation classmates' record before his graduation season departure. Apart from these 3 sentences, there is nothing else on it, let alone a signature. Although somewhat inexplicable, it is also easy to tell from the initial words that it was left by Su Yumeng. At that time, He had a cold personality and was extremely indifferent to Su Yumeng. Seeing these things, he would only ignore them, let alone develop curiosity to explore. Now that I happen to think of this, I naturally quote it. Is there any problem? Lu Shixian looked at her in confusion. But the girl just stared at her blankly, with a resolute determination to break through the sand pot and ask to the end. Lu Shixian only felt that his head was a bit big, just teasing the girl. How could such an upset happen? He had to be honest and say, okay, I'm not pretending anymore, I'm also showcasing myself. I actually come from the future, and these are what I saw you write with your own hands, okay? But as the girl was about to burst the dam, her towering chest began to heave violently. Don't, I'll say it right away. I just saw your name, and it came to mind by chance after reading some poems before. Lu Shixian quickly made up an excuse on the spot, suspecting that if he didn't speak clearly, according to the girl's determination to break through the clay pot and ask to the end, he wouldn't have to leave the classroom door today. Although it was fabricated, and even he thought he couldn't resist careful consideration, Su Yumeng seemed to have accepted this statement, and his emotions began to slowly stabilize. Tomorrow I won't release water, you better pray that you can win forever. Su Yumeng let go of this sentence, gave him a deep glance, and finally carried the item that belonged to her, drifting away. Only the inexplicable and speechless Lu Shixian remained. What the hell is this? Today's forced behavior is considered a complete failure. The key is that being a good person is too difficult, and now no one even believes in telling the truth. Talking nonsense is actually a matter of deep belief. The world is going downhill. The most crucial thing is, does brother still need you to release water? Even in your past life, you only defeated me once in the middle school entrance exam when calculating physical fitness scores and my brother's performance was not good. Thinking back to his past life, Su Yumeng was in the same level of scoring. Although the total score of Wu Xingxi was better than him and ranked several places higher than him, it was not much stronger. Being able to win against him is purely due to the luck of a player who has both strengths and weaknesses. He gradually discovered some details that he had not paid attention to before. If he remembers correctly, the admission criteria for Jinling affiliated middle school to pass the middle school entrance examination in Jinling district are among the top 20 in the city, and the rest are self-enrollment. Su Yumeng seems to be just as far behind as herself, but she can't fake the admission list. She still went to Jinling affiliated middle school without meeting the ranking requirements. I also remember that the news of Su Yumeng being admitted to Jinling affiliated middle school did not spread, but only appeared briefly on the admission list. Thinking of such a big event that is conducive to enrollment, Jinling Agricultural High School surprisingly did not promote it much. This is extremely abnormal. So, the following reasoning will be very simple. Damn it, this girl is actually the second generation. I thought I had secured the victory, but I didn't expect them to be waiting for me at the finish line. Turns out the clown is actually himself. Lu Shixian's face turned green, like a lemon essence living in the world. What is the first place in the third grade? Can you eat it? Today passed in a daze, and never worrying about anything was a good habit he had developed in his past life. Lu Shixian quickly adjusted his somewhat unbalanced mentality and became passionate again. What is the second generation leader? I am the future god of academic excellence in the Kingdom of China. Life is already so difficult, why are weekends so short? This is a heavy topic that will never disappear. On Saturday, Lu Shixian had a rare long time of solitude. He made some adjustments to his previous plan. In terms of physical examination, after several days of persistent training, Lu Shixian has felt that his body has adapted to this training intensity. The only physical testing project is 1 kilometer and 5 laps. My current score is 4 minutes and 54 seconds, which translates to a grade score of 1 minute. Oh my goodness, I finally ran within 5 minutes for the first time. Lu Shixian breathed a sigh of relief, knowing how much effort he had put in for this 1 point that others could easily get. There's no way, the foundation of this body is too poor. But speaking of it, it is only natural for debts in this life to be repaid in previous lives, isn't it? Lu Shixian couldn't say anything roast. In terms of grades, Lu Shixian was as steady as an old dog and quietly asked Wang Chunya for a few past high school entrance exam questions. Chinese, completed 40 minutes, subjective questions are a bit difficult to evaluate. Well, deducting a customary score of 1 point, I don't think it's a big problem. As for the essay, it highlights the key points, has a clear structure, and sincere emotions. Lu Shixian was moved by himself, so why not give him a perfect score? So he took out a red pen and marked 119 of the dragon flying and phoenix dancing in the exam paper. Math, finished 20 minutes, may I ask what brother this is? Lu Shixian didn't even look at the reference answer and gave it a full score. English, completed for 30 minutes, of which only a quarter of the listening comprehension took up half of his answering time. There's no way, they're playing hooligans. What do you have? Facing the reference answer, Lu Shixian drew a series of continuous and beautiful check marks. The grades have been released, all right. Well done. Lu Shixian wrote at the end of the exam paper the most reviews Wang Chunya had given him. So is this the result of his previous life that made him work so hard that he became insane? Lu Shixian suddenly remembered a well-known advertising slogan for a easy girl. XXX. Mom no longer needs to worry about my studies. What do you think of Chapter 8, Yuanfang? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As for the history of biology, although physics is not his strong suit, for him, middle school physics is just basic knowledge that includes force, heat, sound, electricity, and light. Getting a full score should be more than enough. Not to mention biology and agriculture are not separated. Studying agriculture and biology is of utmost importance and has always been his ace in the field. It can only be said that his biggest loss in the middle school entrance examination is that his biology score is not included in the total score. He was able to get into a third high school in Jinling, where there were many underperforming students, and his achievements in biology were indispensable. He only glanced at the topic and lost his interest in getting hands-on. After all, waste is shameful, and frugality is a source of pride. The ink durability of neutral pens can be reduced by a little. He can guarantee that this is by no means a reason for him to be lazy. To be honest, history is simply his weakness. In junior high school, he was the worst of his 6 subjects. Even though he studies hard, his exam score always hovers between 70 and 80 points. Undoubtedly, this has caused an immense shadow in his strong heart. So I attended science classes in high school and agriculture in college. In the eyes of many people, agriculture and biology are almost equal, but they are still in the field of science. So he has no connection with humanities, nor any related foundation. I respect history, but history doesn't respect me, so I bid farewell to you, said Lu Shi, feeling envious and having sexual intercourse. Since it was destined to have no intersection and reviewing history was time-consuming and laborious, Lu Shixian's heart was still very clear. It has nothing to do with whether he has a headache when he sees the question. On Sunday, the atmosphere for the upcoming exams in the school became increasingly lively. A banner hangs high at the school gate. Lu Shixian looked up while eating the mantou in the canteen. The first joint mock high school entrance examination for Jinling Agricultural Junior High School. It's said to be the first time, but in fact, it's also the last time. Later, the school leaders should have been hit and recognized the cruel reality. Lu Shixian shook his head in envy. If he remembers correctly in this exam, he and Su Yumeng were the ones who took the lead in Jinling Agricultural High School. However, the scores of the two individuals were 68 and 88 respectively, which sounds quite auspicious. There are 8 classes in Jinling Agricultural High School, with a total of over 400 students, almost covering the bottom 500 of this joint exam. Even in the same region, the gap caused by differences in educational resources is like a natural trench. It can be imagined that if he were in an area with extremely backward educational resources, his level of education might not be as good as in Jinling Agricultural School. So, he could only silently thank his parents for giving birth to him in Jinling, a developed area in eastern China. Morning is still training time. Under his reasonable training plan, his performance advanced by 5 seconds again. Assuming that the timer he borrowed from Lin DePeo is not faulty. In the afternoon, students began to return to school one after another. Regardless of whether they take exams or not, it seems that students always feel heavy when they return to school, regardless of the stage and grade. On that day, the evening self-study arrived as scheduled. Looking at the words, language, numbers, and English, just written on the blackboard, Lu Shixian couldn't help but exclaim that at this time, the material history teacher in Jinling really had no human rights. Maybe it's not as effective as the physical education teacher talking yet. However, this situation will not last long. The so-called occupational status is determined by the social status resources it possesses, but it often manifests itself in the form of occupational reputation. After the nationwide basic education reform and the inclusion of other subjects and main subjects in the total score of the high school entrance examination, there was not enough time to recruit new teachers. For a while, the history of biology teachers at this stage were still very popular. According to the theory of economics, as consumption increases and the supply curve remains unchanged, under the concept of market equilibrium, their value is slowly rising. The insurance that should have been purchased in junior high school has already been purchased, and for a while, Lu Shixian was somewhat idle. There's no way, even though he was a top student in the 2007 Jinling Agricultural School, he couldn't do anything unrelated to the exam until the gambling contract was completed. After all, the world is vast, and the school rules are the biggest. Of course, if he gets first place, the situation will be different again. After all, as the saying goes, there are no lovers but emotions in school rules, and sometimes it is necessary to talk about human relationships. Be a warm teacher, eliminate rough teaching, advocate civilized teaching, and combine them to showcase the essence of wisdom and warmth in school rules. Lu Shixian was deeply convinced of this. What do you think, Yuanfang? Beside her, Chen Yi, who was studying hard, lifted her head and looked at her desk mate in confusion. What Yuanfang? Are you talking to me? Looking at Chen Yi at this moment, her big eyes were filled with doubts. Lu Shixian felt that she didn't have the glint of wisdom and intelligence in her past life at all, but instead appeared a bit silly and cute. He no longer dares to tell the truth, after all, no one will believe him even if he says it. It's better to open your eyes and tell lies. Anyway, people nowadays are just like this, right? You are the only one sitting next to me. If I don't talk to you, do I still talk to the air? The willow catkins represent the beauty of a woman, while the fragrance represents the beauty of youth. My name is Yuanfang, is there a problem? Beside him, Chen Yi seems to have developed some resistance recently. As the saying goes, only tired cows are not plowed. No, it seems like I went on the wrong set. It should be because I adapted to his new shape or personality. Although a bit shy, it's not completely unbearable anymore. Can you be more serious? You worked so hard before, don't let down your previous efforts. Upon hearing her kind advice, Lu Shixian sighed inwardly. In the future, Chen Yi's ability to become a college counselor can be considered a professional match. So Yi classmate, do you like me from the past or me now? Bored Lu Shi was so jealous that he couldn't spare anyone and continued to bully his poor desk mate. This is a closed question trap that will be left unanswered in later generations. If one's emotional intelligence is higher, it will definitely be because they don't like the answer or both like it. But at this moment, Chen Yi looked up and seemed to be thinking about this issue very seriously. Naive and romantic, this is the main melody of 2007. After a full 2 minutes, Chen Yi finally spoke up and said, "Although you used to be excellent, I always felt that you were so far away from us. Even if you sit next to me, I still feel like you're far away and out of reach." Number 34, but now, it seems to have become more realistic and within reach. I didn't dislike the way I used to look, but I think I prefer the way I am now. Upon hearing this, Lu Shixian couldn't help but think of a long-standing question in his past life. Why do women like guys who look bad? Chapter 9. Starting Social Behavior. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In other words, why can scumbags always succeed? From an emotional perspective, this is because they are more aggressive, better understand women's psychology, and can understand women's preferences without spending too much effort. But Lu Shixian is better at, or rather, better at, thinking about problems from an academic perspective. In fact, this is also an application of the Gresham rule. It is also known as, bad currency drives out good currency, which refers to the situation where due to information asymmetry, when the information lacking party has a certain valuation, the information sufficient party will choose to provide goods with lower real value, resulting in fewer and fewer goods with higher real value in the market. When applied to the field of marriage and romance, if number 1 is a good man, number 2 is a bad man, and number 3 is a beautiful woman. Obviously, according to the Pareto rule, the combination of number 1 and number 3 belongs to the optimal combination. But in reality, the likelihood of this happening is not as high as imagined. The number 1 good man has much more choice rights than others due to his own advantages in conditions and endowments, so he may have concerns about emotional choices and even be unwilling to hang himself from a tree. But the second bad man is different. They have nothing, so they can only burn their boats. Their initial level of seriousness towards this relationship is clearly greater than the first. But beautiful women can only rely on the performance of 2 people in pursuit as the basis for accepting love. So it is highly likely that beautiful women will be misled by the methods of bad men, until they finally wake up after being successful. A quick breakup may be a good outcome, but if you have children after marriage, it's like being stuck in a quagmire and unable to get out. Lu Shixian could actually tell that Chen Yi may have a slight liking for him now. But this can't be considered like at all. The pond is too small, and Chen Yi can only see him. When the water rises and the ship rises, with a clear view, one can see further places, and her values and concepts will gradually align with this society unconsciously. In human sociology, this is not called material. There is a famous saying that goes, "Man is a product of the environment." Although material things may seem like a person's subjective behavior, everyone around them is an accomplice. This is also the deep-seated reason why first love always ends without success, and graduation is the season of breakups. Thinking of this, Lu Shixian even more harbored the idea of cherishing it. Perhaps everyone has a naive and ignorant emotion, without any impurities, as pure and transparent as crystal. Not everyone is entitled to enjoy this kind of emotion, and even before they have time to experience it, youth cruelly ends. Lu Shixian picked up a small notebook that served as the Chu River and Han Realm by his desk. Inside, there are densely arranged and neatly arranged all the knowledge points taught by the teacher in a certain class. Not only does it not feel uncomfortable, but the delicate font actually makes Lu Shixian feel a pleasing beauty. From this, one can imagine Chen Yi's seriousness and focus on learning. Regardless of whether the method was good or bad, I can imagine that she was able to get into Jinling No. 1 middle school step by step and finally successfully get into Jinling University. At least he is much stronger than his previous life, where he rose like a comet and quickly fell. Thinking of this, Lu Shixian's thought of providing her with some more efficient review methods also faded. Whether it's a white cat or a black cat, the one who can catch mice is a good cat, isn't it? In terms of consequentialism, Chen Yi can now be his teacher, and what qualifications does he have to point out? Not everything done out of kindness will lead to good results. Changing someone else's normal life rashly may lead to the opposite result, which may backfire. Let some things take their course. Once again reconciling with himself, Lu Shixian felt that his mood had matured a lot. Unfortunately, it's impossible to switch to cultivating immortality in this lifetime, otherwise I would still have time to go through a calamity now. March 18, 2007. Monday. The atmosphere on the campus of Jinling Agricultural High School today is slightly solemn. At least on the morning playground, Lu Shixian did not see like-minded people during exercise until it was almost breakfast time. What? If there are exams, I won't exercise anymore. My heart is too dishonest. Exams are for today, but exercise is for a lifetime. Lu Shi scolded roast, and went to the canteen to have breakfast alone. As expected, today's cafeteria is not as noisy as before. Auntie, it's still the same these days, thank you, Lu Shixian said to the aunt in the cafeteria. Quickly, the kind-hearted answer from the aunt came from the window. Okay, it seems that the top student in our school is also starting to grow. Lu Shixian grinned and didn't speak anymore. His morning recipe is 3 mantou and a bowl of porridge. Mantou are 2.50 cents, porridge is 50 cents a bowl, and you can even refill a cup. The prices in 2007 made Lu Shixian want to empty the cafeteria, but his campus card balance issued a warning to him. After the red light flickered, his balance successfully decreased by 1 yuan, leaving 19.50 cents. Lu Shixian helplessly covered his face, unwilling to open it in times of hardship. The top student in the school forcefully came out for business, and the successful social activities reduced his expenses by 75 cents. The canteen aunt only gave him 2 mantou. Thinking of living expenses approaching single digits, it seemed like he would have to ask for money again next time he went home. Lu Shixian felt a headache and speechless. How many years have you not asked for money from your family? Is this considered a return to old business? Without thinking about this annoying matter, Lu Shixian arrived at the dining area and was ready to cook. Wake up, it's time for dinner. Lu Shixian walked over with a plate and surprisingly saw several classmates, including many from other classes. Dragons do not dwell with snakes, this was his previous idea. But now Lu Shixian has long abandoned the remote corners of the past and sat in crowded places. After all, humans are social animals, and even after the high school entrance exam, they will not kiss these little brats in front of them, only goodbye. There is basically no opportunity for intersection, but there is no need to overlook them just because they are reborn and have forward thinking. In his past life, he could look down on others among the farmers in Jinling, but later he came from Jinling Agricultural University. What qualifications does he have to be looked down upon by others? All men are created equal, but they are always in chains. So treating others well is also treating oneself well. Due to these business trips, these little kids have become much closer to Lu Shixian. I greeted him as soon as I saw him. Time-limited brother is here. Because he used to be strict with himself and had limited time in his studies and life, combined with his name Shixian, he got this nickname. Of course, according to Lu Shixian's previous temperament, these people still dare not shout this nickname in person. After all, there was a metaphor before that ignored their reality. A few days ago, upon hearing this nickname, Lu Shixian immediately retracted the previous evaluation that they were innocent and had no twists and turns. It can only be said that there are no major problems, but there is still a bit of caution. Take it for granted that in this era, the words, academic achievers, will not even appear, because this is a meme that went out in 2013. As for what kind of big shot or Lu Shun, there's no need to think about it. Time limited is just reality. Lu Shixian just thinks it's hard to hear. Time limited brother, which exam room are you in? The questioner was a chubby little guy. After a few days of business, it seems that he is from either class 7 or class 8. Wait a moment, I'm not sure about this yet. Let me take a look. Lu Shixian quickly began searching through the stationery box in his backpack. Suddenly, the sound of someone falling down came from the side. He really didn't pretend to be forced about this, even if he was arrogant before. It's purely because I didn't pay much attention to this exam and forgot about it. 8th exam room, number 32. Lu Shixian said aloud as he looked at his admission ticket. Suddenly, in the crowd, a young man wearing glasses let out a joyful voice as if winning a big prize. Haha, I'm from class 8, and I personally put up the number 32 label. That's my seat. This time, I can get some inspiration. A burst of congratulations erupted from the side. Lu Shixian. Chapter 10. Start of the Fundamentals Examination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, the happy breakfast time is coming to an end. Until Lu Shixian left, there were no strange or deliberately targeted remarks. His current academic life is too simplistic, he is not only studying but also studying. It has been proven that not all protagonists will encounter a plot of pretending to be forced to face each other and forcefully lowering their intelligence. On the way to the exam room, Lu Shixian stretched lazily. Walking step by step towards a predetermined plan is truly a comfortable life. The joint survey exam this time is completely based on the model of the middle school entrance examination, and the schedule is also consistent. Even outside the school, various anti-cheating measures have been arranged. The exam is divided into 2 days. The first day is Chinese language in the morning, and biology and history in the afternoon. The next morning was English, and in the afternoon was physics and mathematics. It seems that no matter what exam, the Chinese language exam is always the first one. So the subjectivity of Chinese language still plays a role, there is no unified reference answer. As long as the essay is not off topic, at least even if you answer all poorly, you won't just cry when it comes out. By the time he arrived at the examination room, the 8th one seemed to be fully occupied. Watching many people holding review materials and reciting words in their mouths, it seems like they are cramming for fill-in-the-blank questions. Lu Shixian did not show any sense of disdain, and he had also done many such things. Even if you memorize it proficiently, you always feel anxious when you haven't written the answer on the answer sheet. Therefore, some people even start doing fill-in-the-blank questions instead of multiple-choice questions. At this point, the benefits of coming a little later are reflected. He doesn't need to look for a seat everywhere. Just looking at it, the only empty seat in the middle is probably my own exam seat. As expected, when I walked up to it, my information was recorded on it. Lu Shixian sat up, arranged the answering tools neatly, and began to check them. He is a senior candidate who has already reached the age of 20, and some basic mistakes will not be made. There was no problem with the inspection, and Lu Shixian unconsciously began to wander. Spring is still comfortable, neither hot nor cold, and there are no damn cicadas interfering with his attention. Only flags fluttering in the wind in the distance are dancing. The sound of writing on the blackboard quickly caught his attention. Calm down and answer seriously. I only saw 2 unfamiliar invigilators walking into the classroom at some point, because he had seen most of the staff at Jinling Agricultural High School. In order to ensure fairness to the greatest extent possible, this should be the invigilator who came to rotate from several other high schools. Even teachers from other schools did not show any disdain or perfunctory behavior in the face of Jinling Agricultural Middle School, which ranked the least, and performed very professionally throughout the entire process. There are not so many contradictions and conflicts. With the strength of the country and the progress of society, the world is actually more beautiful than imagined most of the time. One in front and one behind, the invigilator in front finished writing on the blackboard and loudly announced, "This is the first mock joint exam of Jinling Middle School, Jinling Agricultural Middle School exam site, the 8th exam room. Please check your admission ticket to avoid going to the wrong exam room. Please consciously abide by the discipline of the examination room. After entering the examination room with your admission ticket and barcode, Please take your seat according to your number, place your admission ticket and barcode in the upper left corner of the examination table, and actively accept verification from the invigilator at any time, except for 2B pencils and black signature pens. If you encounter problems such as incorrect distribution of test papers, unclear handwriting, reprinting, missing pages, you can report to the invigilator. For those who do not follow the discipline of the examination room, do not comply with the arrangements and requirements of the examination staff, violate the principles of fairness and justice in the examination, and are recognized as cheating in the examination. Although I have heard it many times, I almost always recite it backwards. But it can be said that this is the first time that Lu Shixian has listened so attentively to the discipline of the examination room. The same place, different mood, different scenery, nothing more. After displaying the integrity of the sealed test paper under the monitor, the paper was finally distributed to everyone's hands. After filling in various information, as the exam bell rang, many people began to use the time they had just checked to review the questions, and began to write eagerly. Lu Shixian, however, was not anxious or impatient. Instead, he lowered his head and lightly sniffed the taste of the test paper. A fresh and pleasant aroma of ink filled his heart, as if two old friends were conversing. Have you been waiting for so long? Number 34, me too. Number 34, when others had already started working on the fifth multiple-choice question, Lu Shixian finally began to take action. To be honest, not only did he forget about the content of the high school entrance examination, but he also had a vague impression of the composition. Even the content of the college entrance examination has long been forgotten. It has been almost 10 years since he graduated from high school, and the content of this middle school mock exam is quite unfamiliar to him. But this does not affect him answering the question with one hand. Lower your head to review the first question. Which of the following groups of words has the correct pronunciation for their writing and punctuation? Lu Shixian's eyes were like fiery golden eyes, quickly identifying the hidden white bone essence. Option A is for profit. Gross profit is not advisable. Option B is to pay homage, but it may not be appropriate to pay homage. Option C seems to be true. As for option D, let's just forget about it. It's not true if it's fake. Lu Shixian swung his pen and wrote the capital letter C on the test paper. What is the correct word usage for the second question? Which of the following sentences is correct? Soon it was time for poetry dictation. The mountains and rivers are heavy, and there is no way out. Next sentence. Suppressing the urge to fill in, I still have to go for a run today, Lu Shixian wrote the correct answer. Why do my eyes often contain tears? Next sentence. Good guy, Lu Shixian's mind kept coming to mind because I pretended to be too deep. Lu Shixian. He sighed and put down his pen. He couldn't do this question anymore, it was all the wisdom of netizens from past lives. Reluctantly completing the fill in the blank and other small questions, Lu Shixian finally came to reading comprehension. Please read Jianjia and complete the following 3 questions. The first question, this poem uses scenery description. What kind of scenery does these scenery represent to us? A beautiful person, talented person, comes first, but cannot be sought. What else can it be? Lick the dog. What is the end of licking a dog? Licking until the end has nothing. Nature is a scene of immense desolation. What kind of emotions does the author of this poem express? This kind of question is actually what Lu Shixian is most afraid of. In his past life, there was an oolong that made people laugh and be generous. After a Chinese language exam, a reading comprehension original author answered that he didn't even know what kind of emotions he wanted to express when creating, so he thought of it and wrote. So the essence of this type of question is to see if you understand the main idea, and then express it in a different way. Of course, it's impossible to write anything about licking dogs here. If you want to score, you need to package it up. After some thought, Lu Shixian immediately picked up his pen and wrote it down.